It was a name that echoed through the dusty streets of the Great Depression, a name whispered in hushed tones, Machine Gun Kelly. It sounded like something straight out of a Hollywood picture, didn't it? Danger, excitement, a certain kind of dark glamour. But the man behind the moniker, George Kelly Barnes, wasn't born with a Thompson submachine gun in his hands. He was just a boy from Memphis, Tennessee with a restless spirit and a knack for finding trouble. Either way, the story of how he became Machine Gun Kelly is a tangled web of ambition, love, a desperate desire to be somebody. No, that credit belonged to his wife, Catherine Thorne. She was the one with the vision. She bought him his first machine gun. She coached him. She promoted him and spun tales of his prowess to anyone who would listen. She knew that in their line of work, perception was everything. Before the headlines, before the FBI manhunt, there was just George Barnes, a young man from a well-to-do family in Memphis. Born in 1895, his early life showed few signs of the notorious criminal he would become. He was a student, a husband, a father. But beneath the surface of that conventional life, a different current was flowing. He found himself drawn to the shadowy world of Prohibition-era bootlegging, a world that operated on its own terms, with its own rules and its own rewards. It was also during this period that he met Catherine Thorne, a woman with a criminal past of her own and an ambition that dwarfed his. She saw something in him, a raw potential that she believed she could mold into something formidable. Theirs was a partnership forged in crime. The transition from bootlegger to bank robber was a natural one, a step up the criminal ladder. It was during these formative years that the pieces of the Machine Gun Kelly persona were assembled. The roar of the Thompson submachine gun became his calling card. It was a terrifying sound, a symbol of brute force that could clear a bank lobby in seconds. While other outlaws of the era, like John Dillinger, Pretty Boy Floyd, were known for their cunning or their deadly aim with a pistol, Kelly's fame was tied directly to this formidable weapon. The machine gun was a powerful branding tool. It elevated him from a common thief to a figure of mythic proportions. He became the gangster who wielded the weapon of war, a man who brought the battlefield to Main Street. His reputation as a fearsome bank robber grew with each heist. From small-town banks in Mississippi to larger institutions in Texas, the name Machine Gun Kelly began to appear in newspapers across the country. The machine gun was more of a prop than a weapon of choice for him. He rarely, if ever, actually fired it during a robbery. Its primary purpose was intimidation. The mere sight of the weapon, with its distinctive drum magazine and menacing profile, was enough to ensure compliance. Kelly understood this theater of crime. He didn't need to pull the trigger. The threat was enough. The gun did the talking for him, speaking a universal language of fear. They lived a life of transient luxury, but it was a life lived on borrowed time. The authorities were closing in, and the new, more organized Federal Bureau of Investigation was making the world a much smaller, more dangerous place for outlaws like Machine Gun Kelly. By the summer of 1933, the pressure was really mounting. Bank robberies were just getting riskier, and the police were more organized than ever before. Kelly, Catherine, they needed one big score, something that would set them up for life, and let them just disappear. They came up with their most audacious, and ultimately fatal, plan. The kidnapping of Charles F. Urschel. This wasn't just a smash-and-grab bank job. It was a high-stakes crime that would draw the full, unrelenting attention of the federal government. It was a gamble for a fortune. They were betting everything. On the night of July 22, 1933, Kelly Albert Bates stormed into Urschel's home during a bridge game. They abducted the millionaire at gunpoint, forced him into their car, and drove him to a remote farmhouse in Texas owned by Catherine's family. They planned to demand $200,000 in ransom. While Urschel was captive, he proved remarkably clever. Blindfolded for most of it, he made careful mental notes. The sounds of a passing airplane, the taste of the water, the time of day the sun hit the porch. He gathered evidence, piece by piece, mapping his location. After 9 days, the family paid the $200,000 ransom. Urschel was released, shaken, but unharmed. He immediately told the FBI everything he remembered. Agents used those details in a meticulous investigation. They traced the airplane sounds to a flight path over Paradise, Texas. They analyzed the water. The net was closing in. For George and Catherine Kelly, the thrill of the payday turned into cold dread. Their biggest score would be their final act. With the ransom money in hand, George and Catherine Kelly went on the run. They split up trying to launder the marked bills, but the FBI, guided by Urschel's clues and a massive nationwide manhunt, was relentless. The investigation led them to the Texas farmhouse where Urschel had been held. And the trail to the Kellys grew hotter by the day. The outlaws who had once seemed untouchable were now the most wanted fugitives in America, their faces plastered on post office walls from coast to coast. The end came not with a blaze of glory or a hail of bullets, but in a rented cottage in Memphis, Tennessee, the city where George Barnes was born. On the morning of September 26, 1933, FBI agents and local police surrounded the house. They burst in to find Kelly, hungover and startled, in his pajamas. According to the FBI's popular account, a cornered Kelly raised his hands and cried, "Don't shoot, G-men! Don't shoot!" The term G-men, meaning government men, was instantly seared into the American lexicon. The trial was swift. Urschel's evidence and the FBI's investigation made the case airtight. They were convicted under the new Federal Kidnapping Act, the Lindbergh Law, which made kidnapping a federal crime. George and Catherine Kelly were both sentenced to life in prison. There would be no escape. George Machine Gun Kelly was sent to the newly opened Alcatraz, where he became inmate number 117. Stripped of his nickname and weapon, he was simply George Barnes again. Reportedly, a model, quiet prisoner. He died of a heart attack in 1954, on his 59th birthday. Catherine was released in 1958 and lived quietly until her death in 1985. The legend of Machine Gun Kelly outlived the man, a cautionary tale of a simple life lost to the seductive and ultimately empty promise of infamy.